Welcome back, everyone, to the sixth episode of the Gateway Tailgate Podcast. I'm Sean. That's Adam. Say hello, Adam.
What's up?
No Kenny tonight. He is boots on the ground at the Battlehawks game. We do have quite a lot on tap tonight, though, so we'll reopen some recent wounds with City's loss to Kansas in Kansas. That was a rough one. The Blues are setting records as they continue to win and push to the playoffs. The Cardinals bats stay red hot, except for the game that's recording right now. Don't look at the score of that one. The pitching has been up and is currently down. The Battlehawks open their home campaign with a win against the San Antonio Brahmas, and then we'll turn our focus nationally with the Final Four becoming the Final Two, and the Masters just being days away. So if you are a sports fan, which if you're watching this, I would just assume that you are, you're eating real good this time of year. So before we get to our first topic, let's start out as we always do with a look back with This Week in Sports History. Do have a few to touch on, so I will go first here. April 7th, 1971, the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, that's a mouthful, unanimously affirmed a decision against Curt Flood, who had sued Major League Baseball over the reserve clause, which paved the way for the establishment of free agency in baseball. Free agency has not gotten out of hand at all.
No, seems just fine.
Yeah.
April 8th, 1941, in his fourth title defense in 9 weeks, which blows me away, Joe Louis defeats Tony Musto by TKO in the 9th round at the arena in St. Louis to retain the NYSAC heavyweight boxing crown. 9 weeks, 4 fights is insane.
That's insane. It could never be done today. Ever.
No.
Then we move to April 9th, 1960. The Boston Celtics win the 14th NBA championship over the St. Louis Hawks in Game 7.
We're in a run of St. Louis Hawks and Boston Celtics. April 12th, 1958, the Hawks defeat the Boston Celtics in 6 games, winning their first and only NBA championship.
Hell yeah. And then April 13th, 1957, the Boston Celtics beat the St. Louis Hawks in Game 7 for the 11th NBA championship.
Also on the 13th, 1962, Dan Musial scores his 1869th run, which was a new NL record.
That's impressive, man.
That's crazy. I was trying to do the math on that, and it's like basically 110 runs a year.
That's incredible. And then a bonus one that we have for this week, because we actually missed it last week. April 2nd, 1995, St. Louis held the McDonald's High School All-American game. Not a big deal, except when you look at the names that were involved. Listen to this list. Chauncey Billups, Vince Carter, Kevin Garnett, Anton Jameson, Stephon Marbury, Ron Mercer, Paul Pierce, and St. Charles West's own Ryan Robertson. And if you're not familiar with him, Robertson led St. Charles West to the Missouri State Championship in 1995, went on to play 4 years at a certain school in Kansas called KU, was a second-round pick in 1999 by the Sacramento Kings. He only played 1 year in the NBA, only appeared in one game, but he bounced around to various leagues from there. But technically, a St. Louis's own.
That game blows my mind. Where I found that was, I'm going to credit Ben Hochman on this one.
Okay.
He posted it on Twitter. That game had 4 Hall of Famers, 7 NBA All-Stars, 2 NCAA champs, and a kid named Kevin Garnett.
That's amazing.
That's just nuts.
So, as before we jump into like our actual topics, we always do the This Week in Sports History and then a little quick trivia. Kenny's not here, so it's all on your shoulders now.
I got this.
So, how many McDonald's All-Americans, both men and women, have been from St. Louis? I will caveat this with I'm basing the answer just off what I could find. There's not a lot of detailed records on this, unfortunately.
How far out of St. Louis are we talking? Are we talking like St. Louis City, St. Louis County, St. Charles? Are we going to like Jeffco, Como? Like, how far are we taking this?
I mean, I would say St. Charles is allowed. I don't have like a definitive like map for you, unfortunately. So kind of go with your gut.
How long has the McDonald's All-American game been played?
I don't know. Long.
Okay. That's not going to vote in my favor.
You're asking a lot of questions.
What's the country of origin? Well, I can think of 2.
Okay. Yeah.
One of them we just talked about. I think the other one would be Jason Tatum. I think he was a McDonald's All-American. I'm going to go with like 12.
Okay, so the actual answer that I could find is 7. So we have Ryan Robertson, and then we'll just go from first to last as far as years are concerned. 2005, Tyler Hansborough,
Oh, I forgot Hansborough.
Poplar Bluff High
Poplar
School.
Bluff.
I can never say Poplar right the first time. 2011, Bradley Beal,
Oh,
Chaminade.
damn.
Yeah.
Yep.
2016, Jason Tatum, Chaminade. You got that one right. 2018, Darius Garland from Brentwood Academy. So that one, slight caveat, you can put an asterisk next to it. Brentwood Academy is technically in Tennessee. He was born in St. Louis, but he played high school ball in Tennessee. So
well, we'll claim
asterisk. Yeah, we claim it. 2020, Caleb Love, CBC. And then
Yeah.
on the girls' side, 2025, Jordan Speezer? Probably Spicer, if I had to guess. So shout out to Jordan. There's your 7.
That's crazy. I totally forgot about Bradley Beal.
Yeah.
I knew he was from St. Louis, but I wasn't even thinking he was a McDonald's All-American.
Yeah, St. Louis is on. So, do we want to rip the Band-Aid off?
Yeah, let's rip this one off fast. This one's going to hurt. Starting with St. Louis City on Saturday, they played the team to the west in that rectangular state that we all love, and that is Sporting Kansas, and we lost 2-0.
Yep.
It was ugly.
It was
Sean,
pretty bad.
Let's go.
I texted the group last night saying I was going to go on this massive rant, and I ended up writing a Substack article instead to get all of my frustrations out. So, go read that, Gateway Tailgate, if you're so inclined. But the topic all week for this team was how are they supposed to balance the exceptional defense with the lackluster offense, and the lineup kind of reflected that. We've been calling for it. We finally got it. Celio Pompeo gets his first start of 2025. João Klaus is back in the starting 11, his first start since March 9th. So to the team's credit, they answered the call. They went more of an offensive. There wasn't 5 center backs like there was the week prior. They looked a different side for majority of the match, especially in the first half. They sat back early. They sat in a low block, but then they attacked on the counter, and they had some really good chances. If things fall a different way, we're talking 3-0 in favor of City in the first half with Hartle and Watts. Just the two of them alone had excellent chances. But that didn't happen. So we lose 2-0 in Kansas. So I think we start talking about this game more of less of what actually happened, less of who was there, and more of who wasn't. So Chris Durkin, Giannis Horn, Thomas Totland, Roman Berkey, all out with injuries. Edu Leuven not on the team, excuse personal absence. This team desperately missed all of those guys, especially Eddie Leuven. The drop off from him to the next guy, which let's just say it's like Watts or Morales, is significant. And I guess you expect that because of the roster restrictions and because we have designated players, there's going to be a drop off between them. But I'm going to single him out, and normally I don't like to do this, even though last week I did rag on Hebert a lot, which I do feel a little bad about, but I am going to kind of do the same thing to Watts this week. I don't think Watts is an MLS caliber midfielder. Not just a starting caliber MLS midfielder, I think just in general. I think he would be a very good USL player. I think he'd probably be best 11 USL player. He just didn't have it, man.
Yeah.
It was bad. If we focus just on his passing, he had a team low 66.7% passing percentage with only 18 successful passes, and that's not counting all of the times where he had the ball in possession and had an errant touch and turned the ball around. If your possession midfielder is not keeping possession, you're not going to win a lot of games, and that's what exposed us as the game went on. It was pretty bad. Any thoughts on that before I go to the next part?
No, I mean, I think they played like we expected for probably the first, I don't know, I for sure the first half.
Yeah.
I mean, they came out with a fight. Like you said, that game should have probably been 3-0 in the first half. At best 2-0 is what it should have been. And then they came out and played the second half, and they started all right. It wasn't terrible. And then it was like, it just depleted. And that was with Nielsen going out in the 25th minute, something like that, with another injury.
Yeah.
The man made of glass. Like, it was a totally different team from like the 60th minute on. And that was the most depressing part of it, is they had every opportunity. I texted you guys, I think it was Morales let the shot rip from the top of the box. And I'm like, where did this guy come from? Like, where all of a sudden it's a magical offensive explosion that we're trying to do, and he almost puts one in the upper 90, and then it just went all downhill.
Well, I think a part of that is that he had the space early on in transition to
Yeah.
be able to do that because of who started, because João Klaus was up top, and he was
Hmm.
pulling 2 to 3 defenders, and that allowed a guy like Conrad Vollum to be like excellent. He was
Yeah.
so good for 60 minutes, and I'm already seeing less praise of him online and more negativity towards Klaus all over the place online. And my assumption is they're just seeing the final score and they're just automatically attributing that to a lack of a nine or a lack of Klaus
Well,
in
yeah.
general. Dude, him and Vollum were great for the first 60 65 minutes.
Him,
The
Vollum, and Celio were great.
and that's my next point too. Is Celio has got to be in this team.
Yeah.
The moment he was subbed out is whenever everything went
He's
wrong.
went it downhill.
Yeah. So I don't understand why you would take Celio out in that moment. Maybe it's a fitness thing. Maybe he's on a minutes cap. That's the only thing I can think of because Klaus was pulling 2 to 3 defenders and was basically allowing Celio and Vollum to have all that space on that side, on that far side. And right around like the 60th minute, maybe just a little bit before that, Kansas started to shade to that side, and they were trying to stop the flow of attack through Vollum and through Celio. So why would you take Celio off when all you had to do was switch him to the other side and then let him just run at the end line? Let him run down the touchline to the end line and cut it back in. It it's just a really weird sub in that moment. It didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then once the goal went in, you typically what happens is the possession flips the other way. Is that you go from whoever just scored now goes on defense, and the team that's trailing goes on offense and they possess the ball. We could not connect two passes together. It
No.
was so bad. It would bounce off somebody's foot, it would get intercepted, it would be an errant pass and go over somebody's head. It was just like all of the air came out of the balloon after that first goal.
Yeah, I'm inclined to kind of chalk that up to the fact that we were missing 5 starters, and majority of the starters are possession guys
Yeah,
that are pretty much the ones that hold the ball. Morales cannot do that on a regular basis. Watts certainly can't do it. Nielsen was probably the guy outside of Kessler on the back line that can, and he goes down early. And then you're left with Yarrow and Hebert, who I'm sorry, they cannot pass. They
no.
cannot pass effectively and break lines. So it feels like it was our best game if you just look at the first 65 minutes. If you just
Yeah.
cap it there, it's like that's the best performance of the season. But that's not how it works. You have to take
No,
the
and
whole
even
90.
I think the first 45, RXG was just under 1
Yeah.
and Kansas was at like 0.12. We were dominating them even though we hadn't scored. We were just it didn't connect.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. And we ended our expected goal ended depending on which graph you look at, like where you pull your numbers from. The ones I pulled were from GameFlow. They had it at 0.77, and then they had Sporting's at 1.40. That
Yeah,
feels right to me
I
overall.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rough, tough stretch of games coming up, which I think we're going to briefly talk about later, but not good, man.
No, and it sounds like Durkin's going to be out for a while.
Yeah.
Who knows when Leuven's coming back? Berkey's probably got what another 2 weeks, probably somewhere in that range.
They
Um,
showed him training,
yeah,
so maybe that means sooner than later. But I'm thinking, yeah, I think 2 weeks. Yeah. Kenny
and now
sent
you
a
lose Nielsen.
message to our group, basically calling for Olaf Melberg to be fired. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think so. I mean, there is something to it's not his team. It was kind of I don't want to say a last minute hire, but it kind of felt like it was.
Hmm.
I said the opposite of that text is it Lutz's job. I mean, he's the one that is now he obviously he brought in Carnell. He
Yeah.
was the one that opted for Hack to be the interim, and now he brings in Melbourne. And it I thought firing Carnell was early, in my
Hmm.
opinion. Did it need to be done? Yeah, maybe. But there was still a lot of talent that we could bring in that probably would play really well to Carnell's style. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think they have a couple more days of the spring transfer window. Isn't it like mid-April that it goes out? Um, and that's the MLS one.
Correct. Yeah. The majority of other windows are closed throughout the
Right. So
year.
we're probably not gonna get anybody out of the MLS. Like there's not much that I think would improve us there. And now we're waiting until summer. I mean, we're gonna have to make changes come summer.
It feels a lot like last year where there's just so many injuries that it's really hard to like pinpoint
Hmm.
one one like aspect that's the problem. Like, do you put it on Lutz? Do you put it on Milberg? It's hard to say because, like I just said, there were five starters, really important starters that were missing against Kansas. But this is not Olaf's team. He did not select any of these guys, just like you said. I think it would probably be more on Lutz if I was like forced to pick one, because I just talked about how we were struggling to do anything in the midfield and hold the ball, and you had two guys before the season started that were backups to Leuven specifically for that, which is Kojima, which you allowed him to be taken in the expansion draft, and then you trade away Indiana Vasilev, who is the other guy who could have filled in that position.
Yeah, that was a last minute thing. I
Yeah.
mean, that was the week before the season, or pretty close to it. So, I mean, at that point, you have to wonder what the front office thinks of it. So, what
Mm-hmm.
Lutz still has, I forget who the dude's name, Diego, whatever. I can never pronounce his last name. He's
Oh,
the,
the former Man City director. Yeah.
yeah, he's the director over Lutz. And then you have ownership. I mean, at a certain point, they're going to have to hold him accountable. And I hate saying that they're just sitting there raking in the cash because they've spent, I mean, especially this offseason, they went out and spent, or I guess last summer they went out and spent. So it's not like they're just sitting on their hands not doing anything like another club in St. Louis. Uh, but they have to spend the money. I mean, St. Louis City's a cash cow right now. They're making
Yeah.
tons of money over at that stadium. So they have to find a way to do it. Now, like I keep saying, it's, we got to go out and get Josh Sargent. He just had a wicked goal this
He
weekend, so
did.
it was absolutely incredible for
He did.
Norwich. So I don't think it's going to happen, but
No.
I keep saying it. If I keep saying it, I'm going to wish it into existence. That's what I
Well, if you got 40 million laying around that I don't know about, one,
feel.
what the hell? Two, then you can go out and get Sargent.
Right. Any more on City?
No, let's get to something positive.
All right, cool. Speaking of positive, you can't get much more positive than the Blues. Another 3-game winning week. Tuesday they played Detroit at home and they won 2-1 in overtime. Thursday they played Pittsburgh at home and won 5-4 in overtime. Saturday they played Colorado at home and they won 5-4 in regulation. So three more games. That's 12 in a row for those of you that are counting, and everybody in St. Louis is.
Yes. Franchise record, 12 wins in a
Franchise
row.
record.
Broken the 2019 team that had 11 wins in a row. That is that is pushing me even more into a freak out.
I
Is this
think that
possible?
there's another stat that kind of correlates back to that as well, and it was like they're the fifth team to win five straight games by one goal.
Ooh.
The last team to do it was the 2019 Blues during their 11-game win streak.
But isn't that like the best part of this though? Is that like
Yeah,
they're not blowing teams out by like 5 or 6 goals. They're winning tough, hard fought battles, which I think is better in the long run for the
yeah,
playoffs.
yeah, I agree. I mean, there definitely is something to going into the playoffs hot. Like, you don't want to be that team that
Yeah.
just absolutely is on the downslide, coming into the playoffs. You see teams do that all the time and they're out in the first round and it's terrible. So you definitely want to go in hot. I do worry that they've been doing this for so long. It's really what, since early February is when they've been doing this. So going into their second month now, or really
Third.
third month of doing this, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're going to kick into the playoffs. The playoffs is a whole nother beast. Like, there is nothing like the intensity of the NHL playoffs. So I do get a little bit concerned that going in that hot. But man, these last three wins probably are the most impressive. You had a game against Detroit in which Detroit is fighting for a playoff spot still,
Mhm.
and you did not have your game. They did not look like the Blues of the past, what at that point, 9 games before that or 10 games before that. And they found a way to win. They win it
Yep.
in overtime. They played Pittsburgh, a team that it was the last team to beat them was Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And it wasn't their best game. Hofer was not on his game. I think he had like an 896 save percentage. And they found a way to win it in overtime, which was awesome. And then you get Colorado, which is, man, those teams in the Central Division with Winnipeg, Dallas, and Colorado, like, I'm changing my stance. I want the Pacific Division in the playoffs. Like that, I'm not playing the Central. They manhandled Colorado for really 3 periods until the last 4 minutes or so, 5 minutes or so. They manhandled Colorado. And I think that other than probably what, 3 penalties in the first period, that were two of them were questionable. One of them was a high stick that the dude didn't even get hit in the face.
Right.
He got hit in the shoulder, and we called it anyways because it's Colorado. And Binnington was Game 7 Binnington. So to me, these last three games have been the most impressive. And now you got Winnipeg and Edmonton coming up next. Two massive games coming up that if you win one of those games, you probably are going to lock yourself into a playoff spot. Um, and they're going to be playoff intensity. That's for sure.
So yeah, you have Winnipeg, Edmonton, and then Seattle all on the road, and then you end up at home
With
the
Utah.
last game, yeah, against Utah. So do you want to see a loss before the playoffs? Would you prefer to win out, or do you like? I would almost rather lose the next game to Winnipeg. I know that sounds like kind of crazy, but it's like you could potentially see them in the playoffs. I don't know. Maybe a loss to them right now isn't such a terrible thing.
I mean, a loss isn't going to hurt this team. I don't, it's not going to be, it's not going to, drop us off and now we're never going to win again. Like that's not what's going to happen. And we revert back to the mean.
Right.
This team is good. This team is deep. The numbers that I have, we have 8 players in double-digit goals. 2 more players, Fowler and well, potentially 3, Fowler, Broberg, and Walker. Fowler has 9, Broberg has 8, Walker has 8, and Broberg missed like 2 weeks of the season earlier this year. So, or actually, it might have been longer than that. So he should, in theory, be right there. And one of those 8 is Colton Parayko, who has 15 goals and hasn't played in the last 13 games, which is insane.
That's the crazy part of this, man. We said it last week. We said it the week before that. They're doing all of this without Colton Parayko, and really now Dylan Holloway. Like it's so impressive to me. To your note about you'd rather play the Pacific Division, can I just say I feel like that might be a little crazy. Like I know the West is good, but the West Coast travel is excuse me, I said that the Central is good. The West Coast travel sucks.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's always been our team's Achilles heel except for 2019.
I mean, you're going to have Vegas. It's either Vegas or Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I don't think either of those teams are going to get caught in their division. So I like Vegas because I think we can match up with their offense. The only thing that scares me with them is that they have probably the biggest blue line in the NHL. And they're physical.
I think they do have the biggest blue line in the NHL.
Yeah, so that scares me just because we do have a relatively small forward, especially when you factor in now. I most likely having Snuggerud in your top 6, depending on how long Holloway is going to be out. I mean, Snuggerud's 6'1", but still, he's not going to be matching up against these guys that are 6'2", 6'3" very well. So I don't know. I mean, a loss doesn't change things. The biggest thing is you got to stay ahead of Minnesota. We currently have a 2-point lead. Minnesota, I believe, won today as we record on Sunday. So each team has 4 games left. Minnesota has San Jose, Calgary, Vancouver, Anaheim. We've got Winnipeg, Edmonton, Seattle, Utah. I mean, that means Minnesota has to win one more game than us to tie, obviously, and they have the tiebreaker. So could they win one more? Yeah, San Jose and Anaheim, but we have Seattle and Utah, so there's 2. So if we are going to win 2, that means they have to win 3. Calgary and Vancouver are still fighting for a playoff spot. In theory, one of those teams can still catch one of us, Edmonton or Minnesota or St. Louis. So they should still be fighting in one of those 2 games. So I don't know. I mean,
Calgary, if you were placing a bet on it.
Yeah, Calgary is the closest by far. So yeah, a loss isn't going to hurt us, but we got to stay ahead of Minnesota. That just has to get done.
And then last thing before we move on to the next point, Snuggerud and Dvorsky. Dvorsky was sent down. Now he's back up. What do you make of them so far? Do they get playing time, a lot of playing time in these next 4 games?
Snuggerud for sure will. I mean, he started on the first line last night with Thomas and Boots, which I thought was great. Nothing but high praises coming from him because of his gameplay, and it's not just his ability to shoot, it's his ability to pass, it's his ability to find the right spots, how he works. Like, he's a legit player, so I think he gets minutes. I think he starts the rest of the way. I don't think there's any questions to that. Dvorsky is a tough one. I'll catch a lot of crap for this comment because somebody told me in another text that it's hard to play center as a 19-year-old versus being a winger. And then I heard it on a broadcast, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then I said it, and he's like, dude, I told you that like 2 days ago. So I was like, yeah, different voice, said it and made it better. But it is true. I mean, there's a lot of responsibilities. So now you have, I think, obviously Holloway out. I believe Texier is out with an injury. I mean, he's a good player. Like there's a reason he was an AHL All-Star. There's a reason that he put up the points he did in the AHL. He kind of was at that point where there's not much more for him to do. He just unfortunately is going to have to grow at the NHL level. So, um, I think he gets the minutes for sure in these last 4 games. Will he play in the playoffs? It's going to depend on whether he's healthy. But I would love to see a Snuggerud Dvorsky Bolduc line, maybe on
Yes.
a power play. That would be a nasty power play.
That would be incredible. The best compliment you can give to rookies, to these guys, is whenever they're out there, they don't look like rookies. They look like they
Yeah.
belong. Snuggerud for sure. I see moments of it from Dvorsky, but I think he can hang. Less minutes, but I think he can hang. Yeah.
Yeah, and shout out real quick to there's a lot of kids in the NHL right now that have come from just out of being in the NCAA tournament or
Yeah.
playing college hockey in general that have really turned it on. Riley Leonard got his first goal the other night. There's a kid for who the hell was it? Oh, there's another one that just came out of the NCAA from Michigan State, I believe. That he put up his first goal in the NHL the other night. So I mean, it's impressive. There's a lot to say about kids that come out of the NCAA versus either the OHL or another junior league or even playing in the AHL. There's just a different level.
Carson Dorwart.
Maybe I can't remember his name. It was on SportsCenter the other day.
Yep. I'm gonna go with that. But now that I'm
Sure.
saying that, like 6 names are popping up, so it could be one of 6.
Either way, so yeah, playoff hockey is upon us. We got another week and a day basically until the playoffs or the end of the regular season. I believe the playoffs start on Easter weekend potentially.
Mhm.
So we'll see how it goes. Cardinals season. Let's jump over to them. They had a very, very, very rough end to this week. Started out not so great. They played the Angels. They lost 5-4 in 10 innings, 9-7 in 11 innings, and then they came out and won 12-5 in the third game on Wednesday. Traveled to Boston for their home opener on Friday. They lost 13-9. They lost 5-4, and oh yeah, by the way, it got rained out yesterday, so now we had a doubleheader today. They lost 5-4 in the first game in 10 innings, and then they lost by 2 touchdowns, I believe, today in the second game. And as I see the note, it was 18-7, so they
Yes.
lost by 11. It was close. Not a great start, but it's really not a terrible start. I mean, it could be a lot better. This team is a couple pitching outings away from being, let's call it 6-2
Well, we
versus
talked
4-5.
about how good the pitching was in the first 3 games. They've definitely regressed
Yeah.
back to the mean. That's fine. It's so early on. Like, I understand that. The one that bugs me is the one that they lost, where Helsley basically walked 5 guys. They were up 40
Yeah,
in the
today.
ninth. Yeah, today. That
Yeah.
one is one of those games where you look back after 162 game seasons, say like, well, okay, 5 or 6 games go a different way. We're in the playoffs. That's one that I'm going to look back. I don't care about the 18-7 loss. That's not a
No,
that
and
happens.
especially on the second game of a doubleheader,
Yeah.
that makes it tough. They had rain again this morning before the first game of the doubleheader, so that made it tricky. The other game that I would say that you definitely want back is that 9-7 loss in 11 innings against the Angels.
Yes.
That was the game that they were winning. The bullpen gave it up. And then they had 2 chances, not just one chance that they scored runs. They scored 3 runs in the 10th inning. Both
Mhm.
teams scored 3 runs in the 10th inning. And then they just couldn't come up with more into the 11th. So it's rough, but they're hitting. And that's the thing. Like they're first in batting average, first in on base percentage, or second in on base percentage, second in slugging percentage. They're the second best hitting team to a team that is the New York Yankees that are absolutely tearing the cover off the ball. Like it's the New York Yankees and then everybody else right now as far as hitting goes. So
Yeah.
um, they're hitting really well. Their pitching is average. At this point, you got to get rid of Miles Michaelis. Like, let's call this done and eat the salary and let Garcefo, let McGreevy. When Tink Hence gets better, let him do it. Quentin Matthews, I don't care. Get somebody besides Miles Michaelis on that bump. Um, if we could pitch, we'd be okay. I mean, the pitching is mid tier at the best. The problem that I see, which I think is going to be an overall concern throughout the year at least, is we are bottom 3 on hit percent or hard hit percentage. I think we're at like 11% as far as hard hit percentage, and then we are bottom 3 on the type of hit, so line drive, fly ball, all that stuff. That's not good.
Yeah, because that kind of means that it's not sustainable.
No, they're hitting the ball hard. That's the problem.
Right. Yeah.
And
So
we
a note really quick. I saw this stat earlier today before the 18-7 massacre. They set a franchise record 8 consecutive games to start
Yep.
a season with at least 10 hits.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Love to see that. Yeah. Ivan Herrera getting hurt going down. Do we think that's going to be long term, and how's that going to affect things?
So they said during the Sunday night broadcast that he is going to go on the 10-day IL. He did not sustain structural damage, which is awesome, and he was walking around pain-free in the clubhouse. So it sounds like it'll be a short stint. It is going to hurt us. I mean, John Denton tweeted out in the middle of the games, Herrera has 4 home runs and 11 RBIs, second most among NL players, slashing a 400, 455, and an 1100 slash line. So he's been one of the best hitters in the league, probably next to whoever in the NL. I don't even list off who it was, and Aaron Judge. So, I mean, to be in that category, that's pretty good.
And without a torpedo bat.
And without the torpedo, yeah.
Pages is not a chump, though. So, dude can hit.
No, he's just not a hitter. That's the problem.
But he's hitting so far, at least through a small sample size, he is hitting.
He is hitting, yes.
Yeah.
And he's a better defender. I mean, he threw out a guy on a pick play at first base today, so that's good. There's a lot of heat going around Major League Baseball right now for the catchers that get down on one knee, and he is one of them. But I mean, it's pitch framing versus throwing guys out. We're so used to Yachty that would throw guys out. It is what.
Yeah, for sure. You're still fine with your 80 wins?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Like, this team is a team, and again, I've said this multiple times in different text threads. I think I said it on our podcast. This is a team that could win 90 games. This is also a team that could lose 90 games. So you average that out, that's 80.
I feel like we've talked about it in like 3 straight episodes. I'm just going to keep asking you that question throughout the season. I'm just very curious if it's ever going to change.
No, not at all. Cool, so let's go to the St. Louis home debut for the 2025 season for the Battlehawks. Cacaw is law back at the Dome. And they beat the San Antonio Brahmas 26-9. And this game, I mean, this probably was a really blowout. It's tough to tell because the stats that the UFL posts are so weak. But, I mean, they really just didn't allow much to San Antonio.
Yeah, I went through the stat book. I'm thinking it's maybe less of what they allowed and just the fact that San Antonio Brahmas are just not a very good football team. That's probably a big part of it. But a win is a win. 26-9, home opener. Wilkins throws for under 200 yards for the second consecutive game. But the rushing attack is really where it's at. Jacob Sailors, I believe is his name, had 11 rushing attempts, 46 yards, but 3 touchdowns. And then Wilkins added 58 himself.
I was going to say, and Wilkins was the leading rusher.
Yeah, exactly. So 164 yards on the ground, 319 yards total. Doesn't kind of like blow your socks off, but for the UFL to be 2-0, I'll take it.
Yeah, and Sailors looked really good. He looked good last year. I think he was the leading rusher last year. We said that last week. So they look pretty good. I mean, their offense is good. That's the thing. And if they can play average defense, they're going to win most of their games this year.
Yeah.
They should probably be the favorite or one of the 2 favorites. I think DC is still pretty good. But it's pretty interesting. And one fact that I have off of this game, you want to take a guess at how many people were in attendance for today's game?
Well, we said last week the average was 34,000, so I'm going to say 29,500.
15.
Hell yeah.
And just to put that in perspective, last week, week 1, Houston, 7,100. Arlington, 10,100. Memphis, 4,300, and that was generous. DC, 12,200. Total, they just barely beat the Battlehawks.
So a couple of years ago, I went to the first ever Dallas Renegades game, or Arlington Renegades, whatever you want to call them now. There was not 10,000 people there, so I question that number.
Yeah, it's good to see them start 2-0. It's good to see them start into I'm going to call it a full dome. I mean, the dome can hold 64, but they're not going to put 64,000 people in that stadium.
No, the only time they're going to open the actual upper bowl is if it's a playoff game, and even then, it depends. Yeah. But hey, 2-0, technically top of the XFL division. The Renegades and DC Defenders are also 2-0, and I think next week they have DC, right? At home.
So, yes.
So that's a big one. That's going to be telling to see where this team actually is, because the 2 teams that they've played so far, Houston and San Antonio, are both at the bottom of the barrel as far as this league is concerned.
And I just want to shout out Key and Peele, because Keegan-Michael Key, I think that's his name. I always get it messed up.
Yeah.
He was in Detroit for the Tigers game, and he was doing the, do the names the funny way or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
let's just look at a couple of the names that are on these UFL rosters. Bo
I love this.
Bo Pete Keys. He plays
Okay,
on defense for the Brahmas. Akena and Nwikedichu.
bless you.
Yep. He's for the Brahmas as well. Quinterio Cole.
I like that one.
That
I
is
like that.
definitely an All-American team name. Pita Tamo Panu. Panu, yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I'm not trying to butcher these, but it just makes me laugh. And then, yeah, it's just. And then you have Mike Rose, who plays on defense, and he is a stud on the Battlehawks
Yeah,
defense.
some quarterback, John Smith.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. All right. I thought I had one more thing for the Battlehawks. Sorry. Oh yeah, it's Kakaw is law. On to the
Ah,
next thing.
yes.
So let's go to the national stuff. Obviously, we had the Final Four going on this weekend. You had Florida playing Auburn. They beat Auburn. That was a very good game. Florida was impressive in the second half. They were down 8 at halftime, and they ended up going on to win by, I think it was 5+. So it was a dominant second half. I thought at halftime that that game was going to be over and Auburn was going to end up running away with it. They didn't. And then the game that I fell asleep to, and I was not trying to, and I'm really disappointed that I am, but I'm also happy because I don't think I could have taken that stress, was Duke and Houston. And I'm a Duke fan, I'll admit it. I'm not a Yankees fan or a Cowboys fan. I am just a Duke fan. I have family ties to Duke,
One
so
of the
that's
few.
why. Yeah. My Cameron indoor blanket is somewhere around here. But they had that game all wrapped up. It was ready to go, and then they didn't.
I believe they
After
were up 7 points with 1 minute to go.
Yeah, they're up 6 with 30 seconds left.
Yeah,
I think they
yeah.
were up 2 with like 10 seconds left. It was
Hit,
insane.
hit your free throws, kids.
Hit your free throws. That is the reminder. And they ended up losing to Houston. Credit to Kelvin Sampson. He had that team ready to go and ready to work. And I honestly I forgot that Houston was in the Big 12. I thought they were still in like the Conference USA or whatever it was. So shout out to Houston to be able to advance to the national championship. Sean, who you got in the national championship? Florida and Houston.
I mean, after that comeback, how do you not take Houston, right? I think I'm going
Ah,
Houston.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Florida's, I mean, a
mean,
damn good team. They're probably going to end up being the favorites, but I'll take Houston. Who you got?
I'm sticking Florida. I said this, I believe Kenny and I both said this way back during the SEC championship game. I believe we said this, or SEC championship in general. I'm pretty sure we even said it when Mizzou played Florida and
Yes.
beat Florida that they were going to end up being in an NCAA championship team. Florida's good. Walter Clayton Jr. is a stud. I think he was the first person in history to have 30 points in the Elite Eight and the Final Four game, which is crazy to think of. Walter Condon is just a massive human being, height wise, in the middle of the lane. I'm going Florida. I think they're just too good to beat Houston. And it's one of those things. You look at how flat Houston came out against Duke, and then had to put in all that effort to be able to get back and get that win, and they have that massive win. It just sets up for them.
Yeah, that's kind of I feel the opposite. I feel like that was kind of a wake up moment for them. But
Could be.
we will see. Before we get to like our actual like our bracket challenge and everything, because I'm sure we need to update that. We need to talk about who won that, right? We did get a winner. Even though this was like pretty much chalk this year, do you consider this a successful March Madness?
I mean, it's always successful. I mean, it's probably one of the greatest tournaments in sports when you really think about how long it stretches, how many people are involved, how many. Take somebody like my wife, or probably all of our wives, that pay zero attention but fill out a bracket.
Yeah.
My mom is actually second in our entire family bracket. Shout out to mom. Out of like 25 people, she's second, and she will probably finish second as long as Houston doesn't win the national title. She has bragging rights out of all 5 of us. So whatever. So it's cool. I think it brings everybody together. Is it a failure? No. I mean, the best teams get there in the end. You had a couple upsets early. It's going to happen. You want to see the best teams play. You want to see the best basketball, and I think that's what we're getting.
I'm very curious to see the TV numbers if they
Yeah.
ever come out. That's something I'm going to dive into next week before our next episode, because I really want to know if having all 4 ones for the first time in like the last however many years, 10, 15 years.
2009 in San Antonio.
Yeah, so I'm really curious if that affected the TV numbers in any way, but and that's
Yeah.
really the only reason why I asked to preface that. Cool, but how is our bracket challenge going?
Well, it's funny that you ask. Our bracket challenge is wrapped up, and there was a winner, and that winner's on this podcast, Sean. Do you want to take a guess at who it
Oh,
was?
thank you so much. Did I win?
Yeah. Yeah, nope, you didn't.
Oh, okay.
I won our bracket challenge. It was an interesting run. I'm not going to say that I did well by any means. I had 160 points out of 32, 320 going out of the first round. So it just proves that you have to be able to get your champions, and that makes a big difference. So I did come out with the win. Reed Eater, he's going to finish second. The random ESPN user is going to finish third. And actually, our podcast, the one that the three of us did, of basically, hey, 2 out of 3, who's going to advance, finish fourth. And we have the Gators. So, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a chance that if Florida wins, our podcast might actually jump to second place.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, congrats.
Thanks.
You were the last loser as opposed to the first winner. That's what I'm basically hearing, which is fine. Congrats. Shout out to Reed Eater, by the way. That's
Yeah.
great. It's a great run too.
And then the other thing, then the national spin for the week is it's Masters week, a week unlike any other, a tradition unlike any other. We got the Masters. Now that I forget what the name of it is now. I think it's the Valero Texas Open, whatever it is, that finishes up. Brian Harman finished that today. We go into the Masters. Scotty Scheffler is the favorite, overwhelming favorite. Rory McIlroy is second. But who do you got?
How do you pick against Scotty Scheffler at this point?
Oh, I did.
You did?
I did.
I mean, if I'm looking at the list, I'm probably picking Scotty Scheffler. I think last year when we did this, I went with Colin Morikawa, and it did not go well. So I think I'm going to do that again. He's what, plus 1,600, which is one of the top better odds. Yeah, I'll take Morikawa.
Mm-hmm. That's who I picked.
Oh, look at that.
There you go. Yeah. I mean,
don't know if that makes me feel better or worse. I'm not sure.
So I had a couple that I was looking at. One was Rory, but I don't know what his quote elbow injury means.
Yeah.
Slightly concerned by that. Ludwig Oberg, he's the third favorite. He was at 1,500. He's had a rough year, but he did win the Genesis, I believe, this year, so not terrible. And he's been playing pretty well on the TGL. I also had a shout out to, where's my list? There it is, Victor Hovland. He was my other one that I had on there. He is a long shot, though, at like plus 6,500.
So Sports Illustrated, SI.com has him at plus 35.
Yeah, so that was another one. And then Minwoo. I did like Minwoo, but he was like my fifth or sixth line down. So Morikawa was my favorite. He's hitting the ball probably better than anybody this year. He had he was second at the Century, 17th at AT&T Pebble Beach, 17th at the Genesis, second at the Arnold Palmer, 10th at the Players. He's been playing really well. He's typically, what I think the last 5 years, he's a top 10 finish going into the Masters.
Yeah.
I'll take the shot.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Can't argue with that.
Also, I think that there's going to be some interesting stuff. I think Bryson's got a good shot when you talk about the live guys. I think Bryson's got a really good shot. He is absolutely killing the golf ball right now. I'd like to see him win. Of all the live guys, I would like to see Bryson.
Plus 2,200. He's in the top 6 to 7 betting odds. Yeah, yep. I could see that.
All right, that's our list for the week. Should we go on to what's coming up for next week?
Yeah, hit us with what's going on next week.
All right, so the Cardinals start a series on Monday for 3 games in Pittsburgh. If you're paying attention to the Livy Dunn, Paul Skeens family, whatever you want to call it, that is a Tuesday game, and they play Sonny Gray. So nobody's going to watch Sonny Gray. We're all going to watch Paul Skeens.
That's correct.
Speaking of which, did you see that the MLB The Show Challenge was hitting him throwing 204 miles an hour?
Yes, and I can confirm from personal experience that it is damn near impossible.
I'll have to try it. So they play Pittsburgh for Monday and Wednesday. Friday through Sunday, they're back home. They have the Phillies. That's going to be a rough one for us. City's at home on Sunday. They play Columbus. That's going to be a rough one for us. Sunday is a busy day in St. Louis. If you want to make the trek from the Dome down Market to Energizer Park, you can. The Battlehawks play at 2 p.m. against the DC Defenders. And then the Blues, they're in Detroit. That's not right. They're in Winnipeg.
They are in
Stupid
Winnipeg.
notes. They're in Winnipeg on Monday, facing the current President's Trophy team. And then they play at Edmonton on Wednesday, and then at Seattle on Saturday. Both games are 9 o'clock games. One of those games I might actually watch. And then they finish up the season on Tuesday against Utah.
Yep. Another packed week. City Columbus game's really interesting. Easy Jackson just scored his first goal of the year for Columbus.
Great.
Coming back to St.
More guys that are not on our team anymore
That is,
scoring.
That is correct. Battlehawks 2-0 versus the 2-0 Defenders, and then the Cardinals. Let's see if they can not lose by 2 touchdowns against Skeens and Pittsburgh. Yep, we'll see. Socials. Kenny's not here, so I'll go ahead and I'll do those. It is Gateway Tailgate on pretty much everything. I think for the 4th week in a row, we are waiting for Kenny to set up the TikTok. We are on X.
No, we have TikTok.
Oh, we do have TikTok. Okay.
Yeah, at least I get emails that say that somebody is liking our videos on TikTok. So
well, that's good to hear. I like that.
Yeah.
So X, Blue Sky, TikTok. That it? That's it?
Yeah, we're not on Instagram because I still messed up.
Yeah, well, we're going to work on that. But obviously, YouTube, if you're watching that here, and then any preferred podcast platform as well. Final thoughts?
No.
Cool. Let's get out of here. We're pretty much right at the quitting time anyway. So everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks for sticking out with us. We will see you next time. Bye.
See ya.